thrilled you could all join us today. You'll also be hearing from Neil Alcott, our Senior Solutions Architect, and Erin Boyle, our Marketing Manager. So our agenda today will be a quick overview about Markie 360, an overview of our Financials 360. Neil will then present the demo, and then lastly, we'll hopefully have some time for Q&A. We usually run out of time, so please put your questions in the chat as we go along, and we'll get them answered or follow up with an email afterward. We'll also be recording this, so I'll be sending this out, and you can share with some of your coworkers that may not have been able to make it. So a little bit about us. Markie 360 is a Microsoft Gold partner, and we were actually a finalist for their project and portfolio management this year. We have a global footprint in US, Canada, and Europe. And our company was founded by former Microsoft employees. So the team has 20 plus years in the industry, and we work side by side with Microsoft's technology team during their development. So our solutions kept up to date along with their latest and greatest. Our expertise is in digital transformation, using best practices to collaborate with whatever your current Microsoft 365 suite is. And then we help fill in the gaps, identify your wish list, and make sure it's as effective as possibly for your PM teams. Our core focus is customer success. We act as a trusted advisor. Our key focus is to extend Microsoft solutions to enable better user experiences. And our solution's out of the box. So once it's implemented, there's no monthly subscription fees, etc. And we're here to support you from start to finish. I'm going to go ahead and put my email in the chat. So feel free to reach out to me to set up a private demo, find out what your PM teams are looking for. And just a note, unfortunately, we can't send the demo to the Gmail or Yahoo personal accounts, and that's just for security reasons. We want to protect our customers. So those of you using those accounts, email me. I'll post my email, and I'll get you the recording. And with that, I will hand it off to Erin.
Great, thanks, Megan. So like Megan said, we work on the Microsoft 365 platform, and what our company is best at is giving you this one connected experience for your PPM management. So we work with Project Online or Project for the Web to give you that task schedule management. Most of you are probably using that already. And then we use Power Apps to extend the capabilities a little bit more and give you a more friendly UI. So then you'll get some scoring, an intake system, and more functionality. And then we bring it all together in Teams for collaboration, document sharing, but also any of the capabilities that you have in Project, you will also be able to do all of that in Teams, so you don't have to switch between Teams and Project. You can just do it all in one place in Teams. We use Power Automate to give you your workflow automation, so approvals, notifications as you're managing your projects, those will go through in the background. And then we use Power BI for with interactive dashboards and reports that are already pre-packaged, pre-configured. So there's no special configuration, you just have those in your Power BI. We always mention that we work on the Microsoft 365 platform because it gives us a little bit of an advantage. It gives us and our customers an advantage where there's no special coding and it's all packaged. So if you don't need the entire one connected platform, we can break those up, whether it's based off your budget or just based off of your needs. And these are some of the ways we can do that. So we can just give you an intake system, which manages your project demand. We have timesheets. We can connect your different platforms together. Right on this slide, I just have a few possibilities. There's a ton. Financials 360, which is the star of the show today, which gives you all your budget capabilities. And then Insights 360, which was that's what I mentioned in the slide before, is all your Power BI reports. All right, and now I'll pass it over to Neil.
All right. Good day, everybody. So today's focus is going to be on project financials, and in particular, a Power App that we built called Financials 360. So with Financials 360, this allows you to track your project budgets, your actuals, your forecast, along with other information related to that, such as purchase requisitions, purchase orders, invoices. And in the demo I'll do today, I'll show us using that with Project for the Web, but it could also be used with Project Online and standalone as well. You don't necessarily need to have a scheduling tool like Project for the Web or Project Online, but typically that's how we deploy it with customers. So with that said, I'm going to share my screen and then I'll give you guys a quick demo of it. And can everybody see my screen?
We can see.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're looking at here is our PPM 360 solution, which is a pre-configured accelerator for Project for the Web. So when I'm in here, there's a lot of other PPM functionality. So for example, you have your dashboards, you have your project listing or your project portal. You can do things like portfolios, programs, resource management, all that fun stuff. But today we're going to be focusing on the financial side of it. So when I go into here, into the project portfolio area, I can see a listing of all the different projects that I have access to. And if I want to create a new project, I could either go up here, say I want to create a new project and start that process. So I'm just going to say a Financials 360 webinar demo, today's date. And if I want to pick a particular project type or project template, I can pick that from here. So I'm just going to say it's a maybe a standard Pinbox style project. And there's a bunch of other attributes here that we would use to bubble up into our reporting. So I hit save and close, so it'll start setting up that project for me. But in the meantime, I'm going to jump down into a project I already have built out. So I want to go down into this project. So if I double click on it, it's going to open up the project. Now, again, we're using Project for the Web for this demo, so that's part of the integration here. So a lot of what you see here is part of our solution accelerator. So you have different tabs that show different areas of your project data. So for example, if I want to see the project charter, status report information, financials, which is where Financials 360 will be running. We'll go back to that in more detail. Our project team information and resource planning, our project schedule. There we go. And on the project schedule, you have different views of that information as well, like a planner board view of your task, a Gantt timeline. So if I scroll over here, you can see your project timeline and dependencies, charts, people view. So again, a lot of information that we're basically leveraging Project for the Web for. And then over here, we have some other tabs that are basically your different logs. And I'm not going to go into all these, but risk, issues, change request. So here's an example of an issue that was logged. Changes, decisions, lessons learned. And then you can attach files as well. And they get attached to SharePoint, a SharePoint site for the project. And across the top here, you see your project lifecycle. Okay. So again, that's all Project for the Web and our PPM 360 accelerator. Where it varies for some customers, though, is some customers just need some they might not manage any project budgets within their PPM tool. It might be managed in an ERP system or somewhere else. Or they might just need high level fields. So they might just need like a total budget field and total spend field, and they're just going to put in whatever the total number is, but there's no detail beyond that. And Project for the Web, can allow you to add custom fields and supply that basic level of detail for the project. But there are going to be times where you need to manage a more detailed project budget. So for example, you might have different budget lines or financial lines. You might need to distinguish between capital and OpEx. You might want to track invoices as they come in just to know what your total spend is so far. Maybe you need to track POs. And everything that I'm rattling off here, a lot of times what we find is project managers are managing their schedule and all their project data in a tool like PPM 360. But when it comes to their financials, they're pretty old school. They're still going to do things like Excel spreadsheets off to the side just to track as invoices come in, how much has been spent so far, how much labor has been spent so far, which is okay, but you can't really automate any of that. The other thing with standalone Excel spreadsheets is if you want to do any kind of roll up portfolio level reporting on your financials, it can be pretty difficult or nearly impossible to do that way. So what we've done with our Financials 360 app, and again, I'm showing you a variation of this, is when you go to your Financials tab here, all your project financial data will be shown here for your project. So in this top section here, we have some summary data. So we have a overall indicator. In this case, for my demo environment, I simply have it as a toggle where the project manager can switch it to whatever value. But since we are tracking a more detailed budget with the Financial 360 tool, you could have this automatically calculated. So based on your budget variance, over here you can see we're tracking budget variance. You could have it automatically switch to at risk or critical as you either consume all your budget or you start to go over budget. And then down below here you have different fields like what's our total budget, total actuals, what's our remaining. Now the little symbols that you see next to this basically is telling the user what type of field is it. So in other words, you're not just typing in what this value is. If it's a calculator, it's considered a roll-up field. So it's rolling up from other information within the project. In this case, it's rolling up all the budget line items. And then for the actuals, it's rolling up all the actual line items. If you see the little padlock, that means it's a calculated field. So in this case, total remaining is total budget minus the total actuals, and that's what our remaining is. And then here we have a roll up for forecast. Then we're calculating what our estimate complete is, which is basically your actuals plus whatever your forecast is. And then you have the budget variance, which is the difference between total budget and then your estimate to complete. Okay. And then we have benefits. When would they start? And then we can also do things like sync invoices to actuals. That's useful in cases where maybe you have an ERP system where invoices are coming in and they're being tracked there. If we can get a feed of that information, we can have it automatically update the information here through a data flow and then update your project actuals as well. So this top section's our summary information. And then if I scroll down here, we get into some different sections. One is the overall budget. So in here, you see I have 4 different lines, and these we call financial lines. And then we can say, are they operating expense or capital? What type of expense is it? Again, these would be useful in any of your reporting. So if you want to roll that information up, and see what our total capitalized cost is across all the projects, it'd be easy to do. Or what's our total licensing expenditure across all the projects, it'd be easy to do. And then we have our whatever time frame we want to manage the budget in. So I have it set up here where we have our fiscal year and then we have each month. What was the budget allocation for each line item for that month? If I want to add new financial lines, I could just click on new financial line here. I can go in and I could say, consultant fees for what fiscal year. So we'll say for this year, is it going to be capitalized or operating expense? And then what's the expense type? So for this, it'll be professional services. And we can support multiple currencies as well. So right now it defaults to US dollar, but you can set up other currencies, other exchange rates if you need to track that. So I go ahead and save it, and now you can see consultant fees is showing up as one of our budget lines. And as I set up these financial lines, they're also going to be set up for your actuals and your forecast as well. Now these areas that you see here for for budget, actuals, and forecast, as I mentioned earlier, if you can get some of this information from an ERP system, we can get a feed from that and have it automatically update the data here. If you don't have that as an option and the project manager wants or needs to manage it manually, this will also operate like a web-based Excel spreadsheet. So for example, if I go into here for consultant fees, I can just go ahead and click in whatever cell I want to update, put in what the new value is, and just manually manage that data. Okay. For actuals, again, it's useful if that's coming in from a ERP system. So as invoices are being brought in, we can look at, when is that invoice approved? When does, from a time frame perspective, when does that, when do those dollars need to be allocated? So for example, here with consultant fees, I might go in here and say, we actually spent 7,500 in April, and in May, I don't know, we'll say 5,000, so forth and so on. So they can just manually update that. But if it's coming in from the ERP system, whatever month that invoice was approved for, it'll automatically enter that value in for the project manager. And that could be a feed that happens once a day or once a week, depending on whatever time frame makes sense. If I scroll down further here, we can get into the forecast. So with the forecast, we're just basically looking at, this is what you originally budgeted, but you have an opportunity here to revise that as the project's executing and things might change. Now, further down the line here, we also have the ability to track purchase requisitions, purchase orders, or invoices. What I tend to find with a lot of customers is you're definitely tracking invoices in some manner, but we also see on occasion probably purchase orders will be next, and then also some are doing purchase requisitions. Doesn't necessarily mean we're using this to request that from your finance department or anything, but it's just to track that information for reporting purposes and just financial project financial health purposes. So here we have purchase requisitions. So you can see I have one entered in here already. If I need to add another one, click on new purchase requisition. It'll open up a form where I can go in and fill out that information. And if you are tracking anything for capitalization, you could say, well, when was, whatever I'm purchasing here, when was that put in service? When did we actually start utilizing that capability? And on some of these, there is a parent-child relationship as well, as you can see. So not only is this purchase rec related back to the project and project for the web, but any purchase orders that might come in. Let me go back. I'll open the one I already created. Any purchase orders that we might initiate from this purchase requisition could show up here as well. So you'd have a breakdown of all your different purchase orders, or you can create a new purchase order right here. So there's typical Microsoft, there's going to be multiple ways to actually do things. You can create them here, but you can also create them back here on the main financial screen. So if I go down to POs, you can see I have a PO entered, or if I want to create a new PO, and give it a number. If if I want to do a lookup against the purchase requests that have already been created for this project. So there you can see that other purchase request. I can put in what the amount's going to be. Now, what's interesting with this is as you start tracking invoices against that PO, it'll track what your actual spend is. So it'll roll that information up from the invoices below. And you'll be able to see what your remaining funds or remaining balance is on that particular PO. And I can create invoices here, or again, going back to our financials tab, down to bottom here, we have our invoice list as well. So you can see I have one invoice that's already been entered, but if I want to enter more invoices, I can specify what purchase order is it going to go against. It's the one I just created. Put in whatever the vendor's invoice number is. What's the total? When did we receive it? When's it being approved? Now, again, if we're pulling this from an ERP system, maybe some of this is already been done in the ERP system. You wouldn't necessarily do it here, but if you have to manually track them, you can update the fields here. Put in any comments. And then which financial line would this invoice go against for actuals? So in this case, we'll say the consulting fees. Now you'll notice in here, we also have the ability to put in notes. So if I save this, go back to notes here. If I want to keep notes about the invoice, maybe I'm going back and forth with the vendor about something. Maybe the invoice was wrong or it needs to be updated. You can keep notes in here related back to that particular invoice. And with these notes, you could also, if you have screenshots or you want to embed any images, you can have subtables, you can put in hyperlinks, you can attach files. So maybe you have a PDF of the invoice from the vendor, you could actually attach it here as well. And then whenever you add a note, it'll timestamp who put it in, when did they put it in. So if I go back to here, so now you can see there's our two purchase orders, and then here's our invoices. All right. So besides pulling information in from your ERP system, particularly for your invoices and some of your actuals, if you're tracking labor through your project schedule, so for example, if we go back over to here, as you have resources assigned to these tasks and you start tracking whatever the hours might be. So if I add the effort fields here, effort remaining, effort completed, on the resources themselves, you can set an hourly rate. So say it's $100 an hour, and we have 8 hours allocated towards that particular task, it'd be $800. We can use that calculation to also synchronize your budget and your forecast information. So as your project, maybe a task is taking longer, it's going to require more time. If you want to track that internal labor, we can then take those hours in the schedule and then have it automatically update whatever time frame it is that we're tracking those labor values to. All right. Do we have any questions so far? Okay. So let me jump over into Power BI. We can come back to this if you guys have any questions. So all this data, again, I'm just looking at a single project right now, but all this data is going into the Dataverse, which is the web database that's part of the Power Platform from Microsoft. along with all your other project, resource, and task data, right? So with Power BI, we can connect to the Dataverse and then generate different reports and dashboards of that information. So I have a couple quick examples of that. So if I go into here, here's a dashboard with some different visualizations of that project financial data that we've been entering. And over here, you can have different filters. So if you just want to focus in on a particular project or maybe a group of projects or a program, you can use this filtering capability to focus in on the areas that you need to focus in on. Same thing if I click on any visualization, this will filter out and only show me projects that have actual software cost. So this is a nice visual, but typically spreadsheets are being maintained that are similar to this. So all that data can be broken into a matrix, similar to what we're seeing here, where you could have the project, and then we break it into capitalized versus operating expense. And then what line items are being capitalized, which ones are operating expense. And then for each time period, so up here you can see what month it is or year it is. Could also be quarters if we want to round it up a little bit higher. But then we can get a breakout here and see exactly, what was the original budget, what's your forecast, what was the actuals, and what's the variance for that time period. And then I can use the slider up here to pick different time periods that I want to analyze. And all this data can be exported out. So if you want to export it out to, say, Excel, you can do that and then do your own reporting or send it to somebody if they need to see it. All right. But again, that's the main benefit of this is all that data is going into the database. Since it's going into the database, we could integrate it with other systems or pull in data from other systems. But if you want to do portfolio level reporting across a group of projects or all your projects, it's very easy to do.